Howdy, howdy, Stu Devil here, and welcome to a quick test with miners with blasting charges. And this has arisen from a comment that was made in one of my recent videos. And so many of my videos come from comments, so I always ask for comments because lots of times I do get really interesting ideas from these comments, and I've got one here. And the comment was, can three miners beat up a Bestigor? And the test and the comment came back, and the answer was yes. It actually is possible for three miners to beat up a Bestigor if you get a rear charge in there, etc., etc. And three miners together are 975. A Bestigor is 1050. So it is a possible and is a reasonable actual technique to build an army around. And that actually gave me an idea about how miners with blasting charges are used. So I've long been an advocate of not using miners with blasting charges like speed bumps. So a lot of people will take their miners with blasting charges, you watch online games, and they'll put them out front, and they will just try to stop or hold up enemies, and a lot of times they don't get their blasting charges off. So I'll show you that here. So this is sort of what you see with miners with blasting charges, and I think blasting charges are the most valuable part of the miners with blasting charges. Blasting charges by themselves, fully used, are worth about 200 gold-ish. Maybe a little bit more. So that tells you miners by themselves are worth only about 200 gold. So are worth like a 125 gold. It's or 200 gold. Yeah, 200 gold all by themselves. So and yet they cost 325. So there's a big loss there. So anyways, usually we see people line up like this. They start the battle and they'll sort of go in and get their blasting charges off. And I don't know what that one guy is doing, but you can see. Some of the guys are getting through, and they're going to get into that front line. We're going to have more of our blasting charges off, but we still have some left. It's going to take a little bit. Some of this is more, usually this is more blasting charges than you usually get off. But sometimes you end up with a whole schwack of blasting charges, then the unit gets through, and it sort of just beats you up. And you don't actually get the very best engagement that you could, and these red crested skinks are going to come through now that they have taken the full blasting charges, but usually they end up having some in their pocket. They don't actually get them all off. And if you watch miners with blasting charges at dwarf games, you'll know what I mean. A lot of times, miners don't get any blasting charges off, and then they get sort of beat down in that front line. So, I'll show you the way that I use them in my Lizardman build. They still got 29 kills, but a lot of those were fighting after, and they were beat up by the red crested skink. So, the way to really, I think, to use miners with blasting charges is like this. You put them actually in your second line of defense. So we'll start that battle, and I'll show you sort of how it works. And you can really dominate low armor infantry by using this technique. And then you essentially have a free group of miners that can go and do whatever they need. So you put your longbeards out front, and they're sort of my front line defense. Come on. Your miners with blasting charges out back. Why they're moving around like that, I don't know. And you start, and these guys will come in to get ready to fight, and you just make sure that they're going to attack there. And this is one way to ensure that they always get all their charges off. They're behind that front line, and they will keep firing, keep shooting until they're absolutely out of blasting charges. They're out of blasting charges, and you can see by the time they get out of blasting charges along with the Longbeards, these guys are down to just about half health, and they're starting to waver. And the idea is behind doing this in a build is then you can take these miners blasting charges and use them elsewhere. So maybe I want to use them to slow down a hero that's in my back line or whatever, and you sort of get a chance to get a reasonably quick route against those red crested skinks. And there they go. There's the route. And the red crested skinks have gotten 2 kills. The Longbeards have lost very, very little health, and I have a full group of miners ready to sort of muck things up. And that's sort of the idea behind why I do that. So in that battle, they only got 6 kills, but we took off a ton of their health and really helped the Longbeards get a ton of kills and to rout those red crested skinks very quickly. So based on the comment, I thought, could we possibly use 2 miners with blasting charges together, one behind another? What would that do? Like, would that stop the charge? Would that allow both miners to get off all their blasting charges before the engagement happened? you know, is this actually a viable configuration? Instead of putting them behind a Longbeard, could we put them behind each other? So I thought, well, we'll put them in a line like that, and group them, and we will see. Boom. These guys are going to throw their blasting charges, and then these guys throw theirs right away, and you can see not as many units are actually making it through to that second line. These guys get their shots off, these guys get another set of shots off. You can see we're getting a ton of damage. Now these guys both have their damage done, and these red crested skinks are below half health, and now I can just get in there and fight. And if I want, I can get in there and fight with both. So we can actually go and charge and try and get in there and actually beat up these red crested skinks. They're really down to low health. They're sort of wavering at one leadership and getting the tar beat out of them. So go, and I don't know how they haven't routed yet. There they go. So they did still manage to get 19 kills because miners are not very good in combat, but I haven't used up a miner or anything like that. And this is sort of I think the red crested skinks have 30 armor. They're actually loosely packed. I think you can actually do this reasonably well once you have a more packed up enemy, and I'll show you. So this, you can work like that, which is really, really cool, using two miners with blasting charges behind one another to actually overwhelm a unit. And this you can almost, you can see actually when I tested it, sometimes you can rout that red crested skink right away with miners losing like 1 unit, 2 units, something like that. But when you get them up into a matchup where, say, you're going against greenskins, and you have, let's go, like nasty skulkers, which really are nasty. they really are a very nasty unit, but they don't have, like, these nasty skulkers can like kick the crap out of dwarf warriors and obviously miners and stuff like that. They're really a troublesome unit in the dwarf greenskin matchup. Oh, go. Okay. Group. I don't know why my drag and drop is not working very good, but I get that going, and we'll get one group in, and these guys are a little more closely packed, and you can just see, boom, just absolute demolition. They don't even make it to the front line, and you can see they are down, what, from starting at 6,000 health to 1,100, and the key is, like, these guys are a little tightly packed, and they're not nearly as fast as the red crested skinks. The red crested skinks are, I think, 46 speed. These guys are 37, so it's actually pretty crushing. Then I thought, well, maybe there are other units that are a little slower, and maybe there's a way to actually really make this super nasty. Because it's pretty nasty already, but can you make it super nasty? All right, so I thought one of the issues you do find with it's 59-0 is actually absolutely crushing against those nasty skulkers. One of the issues you do find is that we're going to get actually a good solid unit like a Swordmaster of Hoeth. Where are you? Okay, is that Ironbreakers hardly ever get their blasting charges off. So, can you use miners with blasting charges as a screen for Ironbreakers so they can all get their blasting charges off and then bring miners to the back? So and you can do that against more heavily armored infantry by using that technique and really breaking down their charge. Because with Swordmasters of Hoeth, all you have to do is get them so they lose their martial prowess. That's the key, right, to actually beating them down. So we got Ironbreakers here. Okay, we got our Ironbreakers there. And we have our blasting charges here. Put that there. And go here, group, and, you know, can we actually get both of our blasting charges off their our Ironbreakers? Because they're actually more powerful. The Ironbreakers blasting charges are more powerful than our miners blasting charges. And you can see it really disrupts their charge. They are going to get in and start beating down our miners, but our miners have got their blasting charges off. and our Iron Breakers are actually still getting their blasting charges off. And you can see now I can bring my miners back here. And the idea is that I could use those miners. They've lost some health, you know, to the charge with the Swordmasters of Hoeth. But now I can use these miners in my back line, and my Iron Breakers can easily beat the Swordmasters of Hoeth because their martial mastery is gone. Their martial prowess is gone. So they have fairly normal stats. Now, Swordmasters of Hoeth are really awesome units. Like, they're going to get some kills on the Iron Breakers, and they got some kills, but now I can actually bring these miners with blasting charges, you know, and use them in other parts of my army, and the Iron Breakers will easily handle the Swordmasters of Hoeth now that the Swordmasters of Hoeth have don't have their martial mastery anymore, their martial prowess. And you can see they'll just let this go, and they're going to get, like, they're still really good even without their martial prowess. But, you know, we went from 7,200 to 4,300. They took 3,000 hit points off us, and they ended up getting 35 kills, but we were actually able to deal with them. It was actually possible. So, and it's fun. It is super fun. Like, what is not fun about that? I mean, nothing. Everything's fun about that. So this might actually be a viable strategy, using two miners with blasting charges together, one after another, to actually hit different, even more armored units. But you could also use them with your actual Iron Breakers. It is pretty rare Iron Breakers get to use all their blasting charges. Like, miners with blasting charges often don't get to use all their blasting charges, and Iron Breakers have two. You know, like, is that a viable strategy? I think it is. And, you know, if you really want it to be gross, and some of you know what other unit you can bring. That is the Ekron Miners, because they have 3 blasting charges. So just for fun, just because, not that you would ever do this. This is a lot of resources, but, you know, you have between them all 6 blasting charges. So we'll put our Iron Breakers here. We'll put our miners here. We'll put our Ekron Miners here. Okay, back here. And we will group them. And we'll start that battle and see how we do. Oh man, watching elves die is very, very satisfying, you gotta admit. And our first miners are out of blasting charges. We still have Iron Breakers with blasting charges, and you can see our Ekron Miners are going to town. Now our Iron Breakers are out of their blasting charges. The Ekron Miners are still going to town, and the Swordmasters of Hoeth have broken. Come on, use your last blasting charges, please, just for me. Thank you very much. And that's that. So, what did they get? 2 kills. The Swordmasters of Hoeth and the Iron Breakers and Ekron Miners are, and the miners with blasting charges, they lost a bit of health. You know, lost about to 1,500 health, but we absolutely obliterated some Swordmasters of Hoeth, and it was really funny. Anyways, just a quick test, just a fun test to see different ways to use miners with blasting charges, and the possibility of stacking them with each other, with Ekron Miners and with Iron Breakers, because, you know, really, you put them in front of Iron Breakers, and your Iron Breakers get their blasting charges off, and then you can just sneak behind them, and your Iron Breakers will fight for the rest of the battle with their blasting charges off, and I think that's just a fun use. Thank you for the comments with respect to the Bestigors, so we could do a sort of a quick test and just look at some different ideas. And as always, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment. Has anyone ever tried this? I mean, I don't know. 2 miners with blasting charges, one behind each other. You know, how do you use miners with blasting charges? You use them in a different way than I'm using them here. You know, what are sort of your thoughts on their use? I mean, I think blasting charges are very powerful, and one of the things that always makes me sad is I'll play with my Iron Breakers, and a lot of times they won't get all their blasting charges off because they'll get sort of half of them off, someone will die, then you're actually losing some ammo technically. You don't get all your ammo off. So even if you end up with, a third of your Iron Breakers left, they don't have all of their blasting charges, right? So you lose some of that capability, and you can see, really, we're almost using these blasting charges, we're using them all up, and between 6 blasting charges, we're able to take a unit worth 1,250. We said blasting charges are worth about 200 gold apiece, and that kind of always does tend to come out to be about 200 gold apiece for a set of blasting charges. And there's different ways to use them. So is there creative ways that you use blasting charges? I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. I hope you found this quick test interesting, and I will see you soon.